Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Rochlin, founder and CEO of Impact ROI. I've spent more than 25 years advising companies and organizations across the entire economy on sustainability issues. And I'm joined by a business leader who has an important perspective on sustainability on the international stage. Mike Parra is CEO of DHL Express Americas, an organization uniquely positioned across supply chains and with clear commitments to climate goals. He's had the role since 2016 and is well positioned to share his insights on the importance of sustainability practices and the innovations that will help companies achieve their climate goals. Please welcome Mike Parra. So Mike, let me start by asking, DHL is part of a carbon-intensive industry. Logistics has a lot of trucks, planes, and buildings. Why is sustainability important to you, and how are you making commitments?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to those who are listening in. First of all, DHL is proud to play a role in essential services in the global economy, and we know that we have a responsibility to help others, which is why our mission statement is connecting people, improving lives. And as an outcome of that mission statement, DHL has been a global leader in not only in the space of environmental, social, and governance program, but its expansive sustainability roadmap. You may or may not know, but in 2008, the group set a carbon efficiency target to have 30% improvement in efficiencies. And after hitting that target early, we went ahead and DHL became the first company in the logistics space in the world to set a target to reduce its greenhouse emissions by net zero, to be at net zero by 2050, which we are well on our way. And last year, we decided to accelerate our ESG initiatives with new ambitious science-based targets, which is important from that perspective around CO2 reduction, and a commitment to spend $8 billion in sustainable aviation fuel, sustainable maritime fuel, vehicle electrification, buildings with becoming all climate neutral. And with all of that, you can see us begin to see how sustainability is not just being a side program. It's a core characteristic for the company, to the point where we've even are tying our corporate board incentives to our sustainable targets as well.
Mike, that's fantastic. Now, let me ask, there's a lot of focus on available solutions like electric vehicles and building efficiency. What are the most impactful solutions that you're employing at DHL?
Well, we're taking a look, and that's another good question. Thank you for that. As part of our sustainability roadmap, our focus is going to be, first of all, on our buildings. And we already have pivoted to high energy efficiency lighting, solar panels on roofs, and new on our large and existing buildings as well. We're also buying power from wind projects from that perspective. And going forward, our commitment is that all of our new buildings will be carbon neutral and include charging infrastructure to handle future electric vehicle delivery vans. On the surface, our focus is on delivery vehicles, long-haul trucking, as well as ground support equipment. For example, we made a commitment that by 2030, 60% of all of our delivery vehicles across the world are going to be electrified, and we're already a quarter of a way there. We've got 20,000 electric vehicles on the road. We're also have a goal of introducing sustainable fuels, 30% for our long-haul trucking fleet as well, which is low carbon technology, as well as bio-natural gas, even hydrogen. And in Cincinnati, as an example, we've already introduced the first hydrogen pushback tugs that are pushing back our aircraft. What I would add as one last thing, Steve, is, and it's really a thought, is that it comes with we really need most of the authorities to start to address the surface transportation for passenger cars. But the area of opportunity for us that we see is the focusing on helping on the commercial fleet. That's the bigger challenge, and any support that we can get there obviously is appreciated.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Mike, let's look to the future, and what technologies are most exciting to you in helping to move the needle on climate change?
Really three areas. So thank you for that one as well. Number one is in refleeting our air operations. Our biggest CO2 emissions as a transportation company is in the air. That's the biggest. So with that, we've been replacing our aircraft with new efficiency Boeing 777 aircraft, and we've put in an order for 28. We've taken delivery of 16 of those. And over the last 4 years, we've seen already a reduction and an improvement of 18% more, a more energy efficient fleet. So that's a big focus there. The second part of it in the fleet and in the air is optimizing our route. So pre-engine flight cleaning that's taking place, plus really the work that we're doing with our pilots on not over thrusting, and really taxiing out with one engine versus two, and then firing up the second engine right before takeoff, all very safe and done in the right way. The second focus is around sustainable aviation fuel, which I just talked about earlier. And DHL continues to work with SAF producers and startup both in the US and in Europe. And recently we signed a deal with Neste and Air BP for one of the largest SAF offtake agreements to date globally, some 800 million liters and 211 million gallons for use in Europe and in the US over the next 5 years. Again, a big commitment on our end. And then finally, electric aircraft. We found an organization in Western Washington some 18 months ago, a company called Deviation, and we have purchased 12 electric aircraft. They're called Alice, and they carry a payload capacity of 2,600 pounds or 1,200 kilograms. And we're going to use those aircraft starting in 2025 on some short line haul lanes that we have in the United States. So part 6 will go in the Southeast and 6 of them will go in the West Coast.
That's incredibly exciting to hear. So let me ask, as you at DHL know well, collaboration across companies, countries, and supply chains is necessary to meeting sustainability goals. And so how are you working with your partners at the corporate and government levels to increase sustainability across the whole economic system?
Yeah, so first, I think it's important. The first one is in terms of collaboration, we continue to maintain a partnership with dozens of cargo airlines that we use due to our global reach. And to really make a difference, we need to control not only our own emissions, known as what we would call Scope 1, but also work with our air cargo partners. And we're doing that to reduce their emissions, known as Scope 3. So that's one of it. We also know that collaborating with the governments is critical. And we have an obligation as a major global company, along with our partners and competitors, to drive the public policy agenda. And we have a public policy office in DC, and the team, which I support as well, does a really good job in that. On our second point about the nexus of sustainability and supply chain resilience, the nuances often overlooked. When people discuss sustainability, they can focus on the environment part of ESG, but the social and governance components are also critical, and economic access and reliability are critical as well. So that is big. And during COVID-19, we saw shortages. We saw delays of everything from toilet paper to cars. And some governments want to respond by maintaining reshoring production and supply chain. Unfortunately, new trade barriers only further constrain global supply chains and our ability to respond to new threats. So at this moment, the vulnerability for us is the last thing we should be considering are trade restrictions and barriers to reduce or even eliminate global value chains. No country, and I say this every time while I'm in Washington, and I'll be there next week as well, is no country can operate in isolation. And the increased tariffs or trade barriers or reshoring mandates creates inefficiency in production and perpetuate a supply chain risk. So my hope is that we take the right lessons away from the pandemic, and that is that supply chains matter, that resilient supply chains are enabled by diverse supply chains, and that as tempting as it is to make everything here, right, or erect more trade barriers, I say this all the time, trade equals jobs. And over the last 3 years, we've added over 8,000 new jobs, and that's been associated to trade and the growth in the trade, in and out of every country that we have.
And so when we start thinking about, it's been on the front pages, it's amazing how supply chain has become a sort of common issue, a mainstream issue. And so when we look beyond sustainability, What's key to supply chain resiliency from your perspective?
We're looking for more support, especially in the space of R&D into commercial use. That one is one that we have been talking about for some time in the organization, and it'll help us to really, areas such as medium or heavy duty trucks need new SAF pathways. And the government really right now is only able to invest in broad R&D. So that would be one. Invest in related infrastructure beyond the traditional infrastructure and networks. Government investment in charging station and alternative fuel distribution will be essential in facilitating the ability for companies to access supply. So that's important for us. And for example, DHL has come together with others in Northern Kentucky, which is a big area for us, to maximize the multiple booming cargo hubs, good infrastructure and natural resources to make SAF in a commercially viable environment. The third point I would bring up would be incentivized uptake. Even when technology is available, I've already mentioned how the price of sustainable alternatives like EV trucks can be overwhelming due to the quantity. That's why taking a look at the infrastructure to support larger trucks I just mentioned before is important, where everything is built more on smaller cars and smaller vehicles. And we're honored to be part of the Biden administration of SAF Grand Challenge to produce 3 billion gallons of SAF annually by 2030. And we're a big supporter of the blender's tax credit, which will help increase production and shrink existing price gap. And then the last point I'll make on this one would be to collaborate across borders. And Canada has a recent example, a recent release of its ambitious emissions reduction plan and the creation of the Canadian Council of Sustainable Aviation Fuel, or CSAF, as well as other efforts underway in their countries such as Chile, which we've been talking to as well, which is hoping to leverage its vast hydrogen resources and production of SAF. So that would be, really 4 quick points that I can make on that.
Those are excellent points, and a lot of them address public policy. I'm just curious, any other areas that you'd like to see government take action to speed up the process of advancing sustainability, or have you covered it?
I've covered them all, I would say, in my opinion, if we could get those 4.
That sounds fantastic. So let me ask now, each company is different in the way it approaches sustainability and the way it can best meet its goals. How important is it to avoid a one-size-fits-all approach and give companies flexibility to do what's best in terms of meeting their sustainability commitments?
We're a company that has 5 different divisions. And for each one of our divisions, what we quickly realized, where we're a family of businesses, we each have, it's not the best way to say, well, one size fits all when you come into the space of sustainability. So it's important that that a framework, number one, be established with well-known and externally verifiable standards. In DHL case, we're using science-based targets, and we said to ourselves that SBTI, which uses globally established standards, is not only well respected, but it's the road that we're headed on. So that's number one. We also know that as more customers and transportation partners become interested in tracking their carbon footprints, a transparent, modern carbon accounting system is needed. So this is an ask, is needed to ensure proper calculation on carbon use is used for the transportation of goods. So that's the second one. And then DHL has increasingly used what's called the book and claim mechanism, which is a digital system that tracks and transfers the emission reductions from sustainable fuels across the value chain. And we believe such a chain of custody is important system, which will help ramp up the use of sustainable fuels as companies work to understand how much carbon is used in transportation of shipments, whether it's around the corner or across the world. And we're offering our customers, really our large multinational customers at a certain level and above, we offer a free annual report to them of their emissions saved while using DHL. And we provide that report at the moment once a year, free of charge. So again, that's why we're saying one size doesn't fit all. But again, if we can get some of these things going, based on science-based targets, we should be fine.
And those are incredible services. Let me ask, how can business groups like Chambers help you as you move forward to your climate goals?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Again, another good question. I appreciate that and appreciate you asking, Steve. All of us, understand the addressing the climate crisis isn't only a business responsibility, a government responsibility, or consumer-only effort. It's going to take us all. So that collaboration that we were talking about was important. And this requires a holistic and a collaborative effort to identify feasible goals and practical solutions. And the Chamber, as a voice of the business, plays a key role in that discussion. So that's number one. We've benefited from working with the Chamber, as an example, and their staff of expertise, creating a space for the public and private sectors to come together to be better informed or to work together with governments around the globe, and events like the Global Forum that we're talking about and other programming that the Chamber serve as a premier convener of experts and officials. And these type of discussions really do contribute to a global marketplace of ideas. And we appreciate and value that. And that's a big part of our support of the Chamber as well. And then finally, I would say that it's business groups that can play the convener role and promote more collective movement. If it ultimately helps set standards, promote policy, and facilitate change that benefits companies and the environment. So I would say those are the three, underlying all with the sense that we started at the beginning with, which is all the importance of collaborating and working together.
And Mike, with the time that we have left, if you don't mind, you started by talking a little bit about how DHL manages sustainability. Could you expand on that a little bit? Where does the responsibility and the accountability lie, and which staff get involved?
Well, it starts with our corporate board and our supervisory board who set and agreed with our ESG strategy. We put together this lighthouse 2 years ago and made a sound commitment to the 570,000 employees that we have globally of what our commitment was and in the importance of making a difference in the planet that we live in and that we serve in. So by setting up our ESG strategy, by setting up the goals and by measuring them, we measure them every single month. Every time I have a board meeting, we have a review of our ESG targets and the KPIs that we have in each one of the key areas of environment, social, and governance. We have key individuals that own each one of those specific areas. So we not only report them on a monthly basis, but we also report on a quarterly basis, and we share those with our shareholders and with our employees, and we let them know how we're tracking to our goals. So that was one. Number two was the financial commitment that we made that I talked about earlier, which was 8 billion euros of our profitability is going towards the space of sustainability. And then we're tracking how we're doing to those and reporting to those effectively. And then it's the physical programs that are applied to it, and then making sure that we're following up on those.
Mike, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. It's both enlightening and inspirational, gives us tremendous food for thought. Really appreciate us. I really appreciate the time you've spent with us, and look forward to hearing more about what DHL is doing in the future.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the time and appreciate your patience with me as well.
Thanks so much.